Hi, I'm Mike Marino, and this is a brand new episode of Live from My Mother's Basement. And we are recording. I scared the shit out of him. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or good afternoon, or whatever time it is, wherever you are in the wide world watching my show, Live from My Mother's Basement. Here is another edition of Live from My Mother's Basement. I'm very excited to have this guest on my show, because quite honestly, I think I've been asking him for a long time. We had to wait for him to come out with something more special to be on the show, but he's here with me. We're not in the basement. We're in the studio in Los Angeles, unfortunately. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dan Ramm. What's up?
How you doing, Mike?
I'm good, man.
I don't know how you got my phone number.
I didn't. I think I knew somebody that came.
You know a guy?
I know a couple of guys.
Yeah, I think you do.
Dan, we got to go all the way back to the beginning of your life, because I'm not extremely familiar with where you come from, what got you into the industry, because I know he's in the industry that we're in. Writer, producer, director, creator. Now he's got a book. So let's get into it. Where actually are you from?
Well, I was born a poor white child. And I am from...
I was a poor white child, but we weren't considered white.
yeah, right.
Italians.
I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri.
Is that right?
I did.
Why do I think everybody's from New York?
I don't know. Because of my New York accent, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. You really don't have one.
No, I don't. I guess I think I had a bit of a Midwest accent.
You really Kansas City?
Yeah.
Wow, that is so cool.
Moved to LA when I was 19, maybe.
Because of showbiz?
No. I was doing construction. That's
really?
So, yeah. Summers, I worked for a contractor and I was a laborer. And then the last year or so of working with him, he let me hold a hammer and cut a piece of wood. So now I'm a carpenter, right? So I moved out here to Los Angeles because it don't snow out here. That was a good thing. And I had a job offer from a friend of mine who's living here, who was a contractor. I got out here and he said, hey, that big job I thought I had, turns out I don't have it, so I don't have a job for you. I almost went back. I thought, I'll hang out in LA for a week or two and then I'll just go back. But what happened was I decided I wanted to try to stay because I liked it here. And I got a job as, of all things, a chimney sweep. For 3 years, I did that.
I didn't even know we had that.
Yeah. It's
a chimney sweep?
It's a thing. Yeah, I did that
for 3 years. Wait a minute now. Let's let everybody get in on this.
So
we think chimney sweep, you think, the guy goes up and down the chimney. He don't really go in it, does he?
No, you have a long pole with a brush and you just clean it out.
And it needs it?
It does. Yeah, it does need it. Not as much here as a place like KC, but it was a job and it paid well. So I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I did that for 3 years. Then I got back into construction, roofing, carpentry, whatever, And then I sort of excelled at that and did that for the next, up until 1999, 2000, somewhere in there, when I got a call from this woman named Arlene, needed some work on their house. I go to the house, not far from where we are here in Toluca Lake, nice house, big house. And I'm walking through this house and I'm like, whoever this guy is, he's in show business. It had that vibe, you know what I mean? And then I saw there's a great big picture of Joe Mantegna on the wall. And I was like, oh my God, it's Joe Mantegna's house, Now, Joe had just finished The Rat Pack on HBO.
Really?
For where he played Dean Martin.
Yeah, sure.
I was a huge fan, still am, of The Rat Pack. Frank, Dean, Sammy, love those guys. Well, Arlene turned out to be Joe's wife, Arlene. And then I went back. He wasn't home. He was working somewhere. The next time I went back, he was there. And we struck up a conversation about the Rat Pack, about Frank Sinatra, about all that stuff. And I think I don't know, I think we kind of bonded over that. You know what I mean? Like, I think he probably thought to himself, why is this 30-year-old guy so into the Rat Pack? Like, that makes no sense to me. But yeah, cool, So then over the next couple of years or so, we got together once in a while. I'd play golf with him. Sometimes he had other properties that I had to work for. Then I decided I'm selling my business.
You owned the construction company?
I did. It was a roofing contractor primarily. I wanted out. I thought this is my chance to do something different. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just thought I'm going to roll the dice and just say, let me go for it. So now Joe knew that, but he didn't know much about it. Like he kind of just knew didn't know the details. So we're driving back from a golf outing, and I had to stay 1 year for the transition to the new owners of the company. We're driving back from a golf thing, and he said, "Hey, so what's up with the sale of your company?" I said, "I got a month left on my contract, and then I'm done. What are you going to do then?" I said, I don't know. And he goes, "Well, I just got a series for CBS called First Monday about the Supreme Court with James Garner and Charles Durning. I'm going to have an office. I'm going to start a production company. Do you want to come work for me?" And I thought long and hard for about a half a second and said, "Yeah, sure. I'll come work for you." I didn't even ask how much money. I didn't care.
Really?
Yeah. That's how
you got to be like the only guy I know that came to California not pursuing acting.
Exactly.
Or something in this business.
I know.
And you fell into it.
Yeah.
That is the most hilarious thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a roofing guy. You want to be a producer?
And I even asked him once, I said, "Why the hell would you, don't you have friends? Don't you have people that know the business a little bit?" He's like, "I do." But he goes, in the couple of years that I've known you, you possess certain skills that I need. I need somebody, those kind of skills. Or do I? I'm a good organizer. When you're it's funny, being a producer is exactly like being a general contractor. You got to pull all the right people in to do those right jobs and make sure it goes well.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a stretch, really.
Well, yeah, producing a house being built or being remodeled does require you calling in a plumber, an electrician, and a paver, and
dealing with problems constantly, putting out fires, figuring out what's going on. Some guy doesn't show up, you got to get somebody else. I mean, it's a whole thing,
So at 30 years old, you started working for Joe Montana.
I want to say I was closer to 35, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Mid-30s.
You came to California in pursuit of construction.
Yes.
Or working in construction.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard that.
Yeah.
Everybody I know comes to Los Angeles, California, especially Los Angeles, which I don't call California. I call this L.A.
Yeah,
it's different. And he gets into show business. Now, for anybody who's watching right now might not even understand who we're talking about. We're talking about a very legendary actor. His name is Joe Montana. Has been in a lot of movies, Godfather 3, Forward, lots of different movies, and comedy, Broadway.
Yeah. And probably two of the things he's most noted for now, he's been playing Fat Tony on The Simpsons for something like 33 years.
I think they said it's like the longest running character on any cartoon in the history of cartoons.
Yeah, longest running recurring character.
Right.
And he has been on Criminal Minds for 18 seasons now.
Wow, 18 seasons. Criminal Minds.
Yeah. I'm amazed how popular that show is. I've written it for them a couple of times. It's global, that show.
So when you start producing with Joe and you're working with him on those shows and stuff like that, what was your detail? What were you doing?
Well, when I first started working for him, I was more of like an assistant, like a personal assistant. And the very first day that I went to work for him, I almost quit because he was doing that show. It was called First Monday, and they were filming it down here at Sunset Gower Studios, very famous old studio. He used to do Three Stooges shorts there. That's how old that place is. So I get there. This is my first day. It's a Monday. By the way, this is right after 9/11 too, which was a whole other weird thing. But I get there and I'm looking around and it's everything that you see when you're watching a movie about movies. You see sound stages and you see people wheeling costumes and you see guys in funny costumes and makeup. And
yeah.
That was it. Like I was seeing all these things and I thought, wow, this is really Hollywood, So I find his trailer and I said, "Hey, I'm here. First day, well, what do you need?" And he said, "Oh, great." He goes, "I'm going to give you a list with some people on which you call and invite to a screening of a film I directed. Start with that." No problem. I'm smart enough to make a phone call, So I take the list. I go back to my office. I open it up. First name, Billy Crystal. Shit. Second name, Andy Garcia.
Wow.
Sid Caesar. Ann Miller. Like it just kept going. And I was like, I'm not going to, I can't do this, I mean, it's like imposter syndrome where you feel like I don't belong here. Like I'm a phony, And for you kids out there, this was back in the day when you actually had a phone attached to the wall and you had to answer it. Exactly. So when I'm calling these numbers, this is not their agent, manager, publicist. It isn't a cell phone. This is their home phone number. I call Billy Crystal. Billy answered the phone. And of course, I was like, hello, Mr. Crystal. Could you please come to the screening? And
was he nice?
They were all nice. Everybody's nice. And some of them, like Andy became a good friend. I spent a little time with Sid Caesar, which was an amazing
Caesar, God.
experience.
Sid Caesar, a comedian, legendary guy from back in the days. I would assume he's not around anymore.
No, he passed a few years back.
Oh.
But yeah, they were all fine. And I was really torn. I thought, I just don't feel like I belong here. I feel very out of my element. But my dad had told me when I was a kid, I was complaining about cutting the grass or something. He said, how do you eat an elephant? I said, one bite at a time.
Right.
So I figured, let me just finish the week. I can't start Monday, quit Monday. I'll finish, and then I'll think about it over the weekend. I'll make a decision. Well, by Friday, I was like, I was born to do this, baby. I'm in. Count me in, And it's been that way ever since.
Yeah, now you've been doing it a long time.
23 years, yeah.
23 years. So what are you at his company or your own company?
Now he and I produce things. I write things. We produce things together. We produced a documentary on the Palm Springs Air Museum a couple of years ago that won an Emmy. Last year, he and I produced one.
Wait. The Palm Springs Air Museum?
Yeah, out in Palm Springs. It's a beautiful, huge air museum where most of the aircraft actually can fly still.
Really?
And it's a pretty incredible place. And so we had done a documentary on their 25th anniversary that won. And then we did another one last year on women in aviation. And Joe and I both got nominated. We didn't win, but it's an honor to be nominated.
Yes, acknowledged.
So, we do those kinds of things. And I started writing. It's funny, going back to the Rat Pack. So 2 years before I even met Joe, I had read Sammy Davis Jr.'s autobiography. And it's such an amazing book. And I thought to myself, wow, this should be a movie, Well, it wasn't. So I thought maybe I could write one. Let me see if I could do that, So I bought some screenwriting software and I bought a book on how to write a screenplay. And I adapted this book into a script. And a couple of friends of mine read it. Hey, this is pretty good, man, But what am I going to do? I'm not in show business. So I threw it in a drawer. So now jump forward. I've been with Joe for about 3 years. This is when it all changed. I'd been with him about 3 years. And I said, hey, can I show you something I wrote and get your opinion? And there's that look that I saw in his eye of like, oh, now you're a writer. Okay, great. I got this guy. He went from hammering nails to working for me, and now all of a sudden he's a screenwriter. Okay, whatever.
Isn't that the natural progression, though?
I guess so. But he read it, and he really liked it, and he said, and this was where it changed for me, he said, is writing something you want to do? And nobody ever asked me that before. I had never asked myself that. And I thought, yeah, I think it is, He said, great. So he took the script back, he read it again, and this time he took a red pen and made corrections and notes and marks, and that's when he became my mentor. He just started teaching me, how to tell a good story in a script. And I've been doing it ever since.
Wow, that's amazing. He's probably the only guy ever to be on my show that came out here to be a chimney sweep, and now he's a producer. But it's funny. Our lives parallel.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm a lot like you. When I was coming up as an actor out of New York and I made my way to California, I didn't want to be a comedian.
Yeah.
I didn't even know anything about being a stand-up. Yeah. I went to acting school.
Right.
I know drama.
Yeah.
I don't want to write it. I just want to be on somebody else's show. You give me the lines and away I go. Then I realized, better start making my own career or I'm going to be doing chimney sweeping. It's not going to work.
I could have used you.
And then when I was coming up and starting to meet people, I was like you when the phone calls. I didn't want to call anybody. Who am I to call them?
Yeah.
I shouldn't be around them. I'm not going to bother anybody. But as I started to grow, especially in the world of stand-up, I started meeting all these stars. Mm-hmm. But I didn't meet them because they were somewhere and I was somewhere. We were working the same show.
Yeah.
And then I got lucky to be hosting big galas, and those celebrities were all there. And I had to go into my head and say to myself, don't acknowledge what you see. Don't be nervous about it. They're human beings.
Yeah.
And I can only be me. This is who I am. I'm a blue collar guy from New Jersey. I'm going with it. So when you fast forward to, let's say, I mean, I did so many shows with Dina Martin.
Oh, yeah.
She was doing my act.
Sure.
And I was laughing, but then her friends became my friends. And then I started working with them. So then when you would have conversations with anybody, it was on a first name basis.
Yeah.
How is so-and-so? Well, he's doing pretty good. How's so-and-so? You know?
Sure.
And then the crisscrossing of people exchanging phone numbers with other celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember one time I was actually in a car in Florida and Robert Davi calls me.
Oh, yeah. I know
And he goes like this. Of course, we all know the same people,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So Davi calls me up and he goes, I heard you're a good comedian. And I go, who is this? And he goes, don't worry about it. Just let me know if you're available. And I go, is this Robert Davi? He goes, how'd you know this was me? I'm like, Davi, we already did 3-4 shows together at the Feast of San Gennaro.
Right.
And he goes, well, do you want to open for me at the Venetian in Vegas? And I go, how'd you get my number? And he goes, Joe Mantegna give it to me. I go, why don't you start that way? Because now I'm going to call Joe and break his balls. Don't give out my number.
Right. Especially to Davi.
But actually, the gracious and the great things about that is it was perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
The fit, the puzzle fit, the pieces fit.
Yeah.
And I said to him, of course. And then we would go do all these shows. And then I would call Joe and say, hey, thanks. Look what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Thanks for the lead. So when they had a roast for Joe Mantegna and it was Dina Martin's roast,
Yeah.
I remember all the celebrities there.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at everybody. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buck up. I'm not even going to make this about him. We'll make it about me.
Yeah.
Which could be even funnier.
Yeah.
Because it's not right.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I could be known for roasting people that I pretend I don't know.
Right. Right.
And that's the joy. Yeah. And that's the joy when it fast forwards to being with people that you actually like being around.
Yeah.
Because we do get to a point where you your career is doing great. You're making a living. You have a family. And you don't want the mess anymore. You just want to be around people I want to be around.
Yeah.
That's all I could deal with.
Yeah, yeah.
And be healthy. Call everybody, ask them how they are.
Yeah.
What's going on in your world? How can I help you? If I could help at all.
And then you get to that point where, you know, the bloom's off the rose. All of a sudden, you realize after a while, okay, he's a famous actor or musician or whatever he is, but it's just a job. You know what I mean? Like for him, he might be somebody that has a high profile job, even like a congressman, but it's still just a job. And you realize they're just normal people doing an extraordinary job that happens to get a lot of attention. That's really it. You know, they all, I mean, Joe, that was one of the things that surprised me a lot about him was how freaking normal the guy was. You know, the first couple of weeks I worked for him, he had a day off from filming. And I said, what do you want to do today? He goes, I really need to go to Costco. And I was like, you're going to go into Costco? Like, well, I could do that for you. He goes, no, I do my own shopping. You know, what do you need? Toilet paper? Like, you're going to go into Costco. You wipe your ass first. Then, like, you know, you realize, like,
isn't it amazing?
Just a guy getting toilet paper, you know.
You know, sometimes we get a little bit of that. I'm fortunate enough to get some of that. I was in a Home Depot once and I'm walking out with 2x4s. Some guy comes up to me and goes, what are you doing? So I'm working on my house. He goes, you just work on your own house? And I go, well, yeah. And he goes, no kidding. Are you in here by yourself?
Yeah.
And I go, yeah, I'm by myself. He goes, you just walk around out in the open? And I'm like, wow, you really think I'm that big, huh? I need security? Nah.
You're not in witness protection.
I don't need anything.
Or are you?
Isn't that something? I even at an airport once, I was getting my bags at the thing, and some guy goes, you just get your own bags? And I go, well, yeah. He goes, is anybody waiting for you outside? I'm like, yeah, my father.
Yeah, right.
My father comes to get me. He's a pain in the ass, too.
You know, I could write another book on all the funny crap that people say to celebrities because they get flustered and they have no filter. It just blurts out. And, you know, one time Joe and I were in I think we were in someplace on the East Coast in a restaurant, and we're walking out, and this lady grabs his arm and she goes, "Oh my God, do you know who you are?"
You should have said no.
I said, "Yeah, I think I do."
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Either that or you say, "Up till now, I know who I am. In a couple of years, I might forget."
Yeah, you never know.
Might have something that I'm not supposed to have or something
And
like
people
that.
are always saying, like, "Come to my home and I'll give you a nice home-cooked meal." And Joe said to me one time, he goes, "Why do people think I don't eat? Like, I don't understand why."
Yeah.
And my
Time
wife
fella.
cooks every night.
He don't know how to make his own food.
Yeah.
So that's what you are now, a producer with
Writer,
the Joe
producer.
Montagne's company.
Yep.
And how about family life? Now, I know you're coming to my show. Well, I can't even say that because I don't know when this is going to air, but I'm doing a show tonight and he's coming.
Yeah. I've seen Mikey before.
That's a while ago. We're going to see something different tonight, I think.
Great.
What's the family all about? Married, kids?
I'm married, no kids. My wife and I have been married 7 years. It's my second wife. And
Kids with the first wife?
she had kids when we got married. So I have
Right.
I have stepkids. Good kids, all three of them, good people.
All California people?
No, one of them's here. Two of them moved back to Kansas City, actually. My ex-wife moved back.
That blows my mind. He's a Kansas City guy.
I'm a Chiefs fan. Come
Yeah,
on.
well, you have to be. Can we say Chiefs? We allowed to say that?
I think so.
Chiefs.
Chiefs.
But I really don't even watch football anymore. I got so turned off by all the stuff that was happening, who's taking a knee and
Yeah. No, I
who's
know
going
that
to
too.
jail and who should have been to jail. And yeah, you know what? I won't watch. I watch MMA. I like to watch people beat the shit out of each other.
Yeah, I was
I
a
wish
big
I had
Ronda
that
Rousey
strength.
fan.
Right?
Yeah, she was awesome. My wife and I loved her.
Wow. She's the original, too. And I don't think
Yeah.
she got her fame was supposed to continue as a legend in that business. Maybe she'll get it back. I could be wrong. I watch all the time.
She's tried to break into acting a little bit. She's done okay, but
Well, as long as she don't become a pro wrestler or whatever that is.
yes.
Okay, so you're writing, you produce, and you're
Yeah.
working for Joe. That's really, really great. Let's talk about this book. Dan
Yeah.
has a book. He sent the book to me. I got it in the mail, and as soon as I saw it, I'm like, wow, Long Branch, New Jersey.
Yeah, you know what? Somebody just told me that, like, "Hey, did you know there's a Long Branch, New Jersey?" And I said, "No." And they said, it's in The Sopranos. That's where Adrian's going to go. And I was like, okay. Or Adriana's going to go to Long Branch. But no, it's, it's funny because we were talking about COVID and stuff before.
Can I?
Yeah, sure. Before we started. And in 2022, this one network that Joe and I had done a bunch of work with, they wanted to get into doing scripted dramas. So they asked us, pitch us some ideas. So we pitched them 2 ideas of ours and 1 idea of someone else's. They picked one and we sort of developed it a little bit, and then they realized they don't have the money because it's very expensive to do a scripted drama. They couldn't afford to do it. So, but I always thought that the one they didn't pick, which was this story, was the best of the 3. So not a lot of production happening in 2022. And I thought to myself, I wonder if I could write that into a book. Just test. I like to test myself, step out of my comfort zone, try something new once in a while. So I just sat down and started writing it. Now, I didn't tell anybody except my wife, because as you know, when you're in the middle of the creative process, it's a very vulnerable time. And any sort of criticism that you get from people is amplified 100-fold. For me anyway. So I told no one, just wrote it. And then beginning of 23, there was a writer's strike. So kept working on it. And then once I finished the manuscript, I let people read it, including Joe, and everybody said the same thing. This is a really good book. And Joe, it was funny. The funny part is I handed Joe the manuscript, and when I had it printed, I screwed up because I only had it printed on one side of the paper. So the thing was and he goes, "Oh my God, what is that?"
A phone book.
I said, "It's a novel. I wrote a novel." He goes, "It's huge. Is it like War and Peace or something?" I said, No. It's only printed on one side. It's really half this size. Get over it. So yeah, he loved it. He read it and he loved it. So it's out now and people are loving it. He just recorded and now it's released the audio version. He read it and recorded it.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so that's out.
Wow.
Now. So it's the feedback I'm getting. I'm very impressed. I mean, I wrote this book to see if I could do it and just to be able to go like, oh, I wrote a novel, okay. But the response has been so great. I mean, I was just looking at the Amazon reviews yesterday, and they're all 5-star reviews. Like everybody loves it. I've had 2 editorial reviews that were 5-star. I mean, and it's a mystery, so you just don't know. Every chapter you think, okay, now I know what's going on. No, you don't. You read the next chapter and you realize, oh, that's not what's going on.
What made you come up with the name Long Branch?
That's a good question. Most of the book takes place in Georgia, and I spent some time in Georgia on a show I'd written. I was there in and out of that place for a year. A little town called Hamilton, Georgia, which is south of Atlanta, about an hour and a half. And I fell in love with this town, and there's only about 1,500 people there. The town is beautiful. It's like Mayberry, like everybody knows everybody.
I love Mayberry.
It's just such a beautiful place. The people are friendly, and, everybody said, oh, there's a bunch of racists down there. I didn't see one. I saw black people and white people getting along just fine, and enjoying each other's company. So anyway, long story short is I thought this town has made such an impression on me. I want to find a way to use it someday. So that's really the town that I've in my mind is Long Branch. And I think I came up with Long Branch because I liked Longmire, the show. And I thought there's a lot of long branches on those trees, and so there you go.
I was thinking that had something to do with it, a really long branch. Long Branch, New Jersey is a very famous town, like, let's say, Asbury Park. They're known for musicians and stuff like this.
Oh, cool.
Of course, Asbury Park being famous for Bruce Springsteen and John Bon Jovi and guys like this. And then there's, of course, Atlantic City and then Hoboken. So a lot of these Jersey places are where everybody would go to the Jersey Shore from, and then they'd end up in Long Branch because Long Branch is on the beach.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful town.
Yeah.
And it's just popular enough, but not popular enough for people to go and have a good time and not be bothered. Whereas Asbury Park, everybody wants to know if they're going to bump into Bruce Springsteen.
Sure, of course.
And chances are you might.
Speaking of
Danny
Hoboken,
DeVito.
do you know Joey Pants?
Yes. Well, I know of him. I've never met him.
Okay. So Joey Pants is from Hoboken.
Uh-huh.
One time, Joey told Joe Montaigne and I this story. He said, yeah, I'm in Vegas, and I'm in an elevator, and I'm riding down. It stops, the door opens, and Frank Sinatra gets in the elevator. He goes, well, I'm freaking out. It's Frank Sinatra. But I don't say anything, and I just kind of nod at him, like, oh, hi. He goes, finally, I get to my floor, I get off, and, oh no, Frank gets off. Frank gets off the elevator, and then he stops, and he turns back, and he goes, hey, kid, how does it feel to know you'll never be the most famous guy from Hoboken?
Oh, man. It's true. Who's going to become more famous than Frank Sinatra?
Nobody.
And even if there's young kids don't even know who Frank is, if they looked at it on the internet, they'd find out that no one's going to become more famous than Frank Sinatra.
No.
And quite honestly, that's when I was working with Robert Davi, and he was doing the Sinatra songs, the Dean Martin songs.
Yeah.
Dina Martin, who's Dean Martin's daughter, and she, of course, does her father's music.
Mm-hmm.
There was many others. I can't remember everybody's name that does shows like that.
Yeah.
But now here comes the ultimate one, Bob Anderson. And Bob Anderson is doing the Sinatra show at Carnegie Hall on December 21, and they found me and said, would you like to open for Bob Anderson? 2 shows, and get yourself a tuxedo, open up your collar, and you're going to do your act. We like what you do, but you'll be the opening act for Bob Anderson at Carnegie Hall.
That's
I almost
awesome.
fell on the floor. I'm like, you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I said to this woman, producer, she's going to be at the show tonight.
Oh, great.
How do you know me? And she goes, well, I've seen all your work on the internet, but I actually saw you entertaining at a private party. I go, you're kidding.
Wow.
A private party? She goes, yeah. It's your material and your presence that made me say, you have to get this guy. He's perfect for the show. And she goes, and we have a lot of people coming to see it because there's going to be a play on Broadway about Sinatra. So naturally I said, well, I don't sing. I've never sang.
Yeah.
And they were like, well, it's what you do that fits. And I got in. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, now they can't kick you out.
I haven't even called anybody yet to say. Because I was going to call Joe, and I was going to call all my, what's the word, constituents? People that you admire who've helped you, and say, hey, guess what? Guess what? You were right. I stuck it out. I got it. And you know what's really funny too, and I hope I'm not the only one. I go, Carnegie Hall. I want Madison Square Garden. Come on. Come on.
You'll get it.
But isn't it weird?
Yeah.
Do you think like that?
Always. You always you're always looking at that next level. You have to. Don't you think? Don't you think you always have to be aspiring to that next level? Like
I
2 years ago, I didn't know I was going to write a book, and now that's all I can think about is writing the next one.
This is so cool. I love this cover. I like the way the little dog is sitting there. He's sitting there. Tell everybody where they can get it. Look how handsome you are in the back.
That was a good hair day.
Wow. Yeah, I never have good hair days.
You can get it anywhere. You can get Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Apple. Just it's on digital form if you have a Kindle or a Kobo.
Is it a trip to walk by a store and see it sitting in the store? Do you go to the airport and it's sitting in one of the stores?
It hasn't gotten in those stores yet. I was actually just working on that today. But what is a thrill for me is when someone who I don't know, has bought the book, read it, and has left this beautiful review on the Amazon or the Barnes and Noble page. You're just like, wow, it's really cool.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. It just made me think, because you're getting a real opinion from a stranger.
Yeah.
You don't know the person.
Exactly.
They read your book and said, oh, by the way, look.
Or the editorial reviews. I mean, when you get a professional editorial reviewer to say, like, this is a 5-star book, the first reviewer from Online Book Club said, I could totally see this being a Netflix series. And because that's, in my mind, that's what it was supposed to be in the first place.
Is that right?
It was a show.
Well, are you working on that?
I'm waiting for somebody. No, I'm just waiting for some producer to call me up and go, hey, this would make a great TV show. And I'll just act stupid and go, well, that's a great idea. Yeah.
You do that? I thought I was the only one that goes, you're right. It would be a great idea. It could be your idea.
Could be.
It could be your idea. You can open for a Frank Sinatra guy. Really? That's your idea? Okay. I've done it before. I keep my mouth shut. I just say, okay.
Yeah.
I'll take it. Right. I want you to mention these great celebrity names in the beginning of your book that wrote you some incredible testimonials. Of course, there's let me not say it. You say it because I'm a big fan of a lot of guys on this first page. I'll let you read it and then wow. Okay, so there's the biggest one on the back as far as I'm concerned. He's no longer with us, is he?
Who's that? Well, he's around. He just doesn't work. He's retired.
Really?
Yeah, he lives up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. We're talking about Dennis Franz. Dennis was on NYPD Blue. That was like his big kind of thing. I thought
he passed away.
No.
He retired?
No, I just talked to him not long ago. Yeah. When he finished NYPD Blue, he was like, I'm done. That's it. Because I think he might have been a producer on that, so he's just fine financially. Right. But he bought a big piece of property up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and that's where he lives. I think he still has a place in Santa Barbara too. But
it always just feels like it's.
But he's been out of the spotlight for so long. I'm not surprised you would think that, frankly.
Yeah,
he's just.
All right, come on, read these.
You meant to read the quote?
He got him. Yeah, come on, say it. All right, so you got Joe Montaigne. You go ahead. We could say what he says.
He says, I've been a fan of Dan Ramm's writing for over 20 years now. His novel, Long Branch, is a continuation of his skill to entertain his audience of readers. Boom. Gary Sinise wrote, Dan is a wonderful writer and always does a great job keeping the reader guessing. Thank you.
Gary Sinise.
Dan Lauria from Wonder Years and everything.
Wait a minute now. Dan Lauria was also on Broadway.
Yeah, many times.
And he played one of the. I had a stand-up comedian friend was also in that play. What play? The football.
Oh, the one about the coach
Green Bay Packers.
Green Bay Packers.
What Dan? I mean, who was it?
I'm a Ram. I mean, I'm a Chiefs fan. So
won the first 3 Super Bowls.
Oh God, it's right.
Lombardo. He played him on Broadway. He looks like him.
You're close. Lombardo.
It's going to come back to us when we're done recording.
Lombardi.
Yeah.
The Lombardi Trophy.
Yep. Yeah. Okay.
Dan said, Dan Ramm is one of the most creative people I know in the world of television. He has taken that creativity and utilized it in the art of novel writing. His work is destined to become a hit TV series, His Lips to God's Ears. Jason Gedrick, a wonderful actor, started his career in Iron Eagle. Highly recommended. Dan Ramm exhibits what I love most about detective stories, the slow pullback on the sling, and then it catapults the plot into an unpredictable suspense.
Nice.
Wow, that's
what good words.
That's a lot of superlatives in there. Actor D.B. Sweeney. Dan Ramm's debut novel is a breath of fresh air. Great characters, dialogue, and pungent atmosphere. A terrific read.
How do you even know D.B. Sweeney?
I met him. I think Gary introduced me to him. Yeah.
What a great actor.
Yeah,
D.B.
really
Sweeney,
wonderful.
man. What was that movie, Fire in the Sky, that he did?
Yeah.
With the Space Invaders.
Yep.
What a role.
Yeah. My wife likes that ice skater movie he did. Blades of something. I don't know.
I can't think of that.
Michael Kaczynski, who's he's not a celebrity. He's a retired Secret Service friend of mine, wrote a wonderful review. It says, Dan Ramm has had me very intrigued by the depth and history of the characters. I almost felt as if I knew them personally after just a few chapters. Let's hope Dan makes Long Branch a continuing story.
Long Branch.
Okay.
I know I have a lot of Jersey people watch my show. It's not about Long Branch, the city. All right, one more. Come on now. This is from Dennis Franz.
There's writing for television, and then there's writing a novel. With Long Branch, Dan Ramm has proven admirably that he can do both. A compelling read.
Folks, you got to grab this book. I have to apologize. I haven't had a chance to read the book. I did get it in the mail. I got a nice big fat autograph. I was so tickled when I got it. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know you knew my address.
Joe gave it to me.
I didn't know he had my address. That's really, really cool. Okay,
it's been a really fun experience. I mean, in short, I don't know if we even talked about it, but what the book is about is about a guy named Mason Powell. And I came up with that name because I took two of my favorite actors, James Mason and William Powell, and I just combined their names. Mason Powell is an actor who had a successful television show for 10 plus years on a major network where he played the sheriff of an Old West town. That show ended, but he got sort of typecast as that character and just could never really get anything else going. So he starts making a living doing autograph shows and appearances like that. And he does okay. He's not starving by any means. But then he finds out through no fault of his own that he's bankrupt. His accountant has wiped him out. So his house is gone, his money is gone, everything he owns is gone except his dog and a few personal belongings. So he has this bright idea that he's going to go back to his hometown of Long Branch, Georgia, fix up his deceased mother's house, sell it, and that's going to help him sustain himself back in LA until he can get his career going. The problem is he gets back there and he hooks up with some old high school friends, and he finds out about a crime that happened 20 years ago that he may have even had some connection to the crime itself.
Oh, really?
And now he's got to figure out the truth before he goes back to LA with a clean conscience. That's the story in a nutshell.
And James Mason?
He's dead. So I know.
No, you mentioned him.
Well, I used his name. Mason Powell is a combination of James Mason and William Powell's names.
Right.
So I just took their names and combined it because I like both those actors. So I thought, for me, I always struggle with naming characters. Like I can write a character and describe them and put great dialogue in their mouth. I always have trouble with names. So I like flip through phone books and things like that. I'm like, that's a good name. Let me take that first name and that last name, So that's what I did with them.
How long does it take you to write a book? How long did it take you?
It took me about a year and a half. And then I hired an editor, a book editor, because I wasn't familiar with novel formatting. I can format a screenplay, but I didn't know anything about a book. So I got a woman recommended to me named Cara Highsmith, and she, went through the whole thing, formatted it, found a few typos, did all that. And then she said to me, this is a great book. You should get this published. And I said, well, yeah, I'd like to. So she said, can I introduce you to an agent? And I said, sure. So she did. He read it, said the same thing. I really like this. I think I can sell this for you, but it's going to take about 2 years for it to come out. And the publisher will take 80% of your royalties.
80%?
80% for a first-time novelist. I said, well, that doesn't sound very appealing, And he said, if I were you, because you already have a lot of connections and ways to publicize this book, like going on Mike Marino's podcast.
Oh, this is big time. Are you kidding me?
He said, I would publish it
I'm going to
myself.
sell 2 books. two books.
I'd publish it myself if I were you. Build an audience so that when you're ready to do another book, you have a track record that you can go to a publisher and say, okay, the first book was pretty successful. Let's talk, So that's what I did. Plus, I don't have the patience to wait 2 years for this thing to come out. I could never wait that long. I'd be awake every night looking at the ceiling. I can't do that.
Did I do the right thing?
Yeah.
Am I going to be around in 2 years?
I mean, I talked to this friend of mine who recommended the editor. His name is Bob Smith. He's written a lot of books. And he said, my first book, I wish I would have self-published. I really wish, because the publisher didn't, they did release it, but they didn't get behind it. They didn't promote it. It just sat on the shelf,
Well, these days, I mean, there's so many bookstores going out of business.
Yeah.
You don't even have to go to the bookstore anymore. You just go get it online. So maybe you could just do it yourself. Seems like so many people just do their own thing. I don't know anything about books. I wish I could write a book. I'd love to write my life story. And I just don't have the patience to sit.
It takes a lot. I mean, it's much more than much more work than a screenplay, because a screenplay I can just say, like, they walked into a rundown motel room, and that's all I have to say. Because on a movie set, there's going to be a locations guy who's going to find that hotel room. Then there's going to be the set deck department that's going to decorate it like a crappy rundown motel room. All those people are artists too, and they're going to put their art into it.
Yeah.
But in a book, I can't rely on that. I have to describe it in detail so you get a picture of what I'm trying to tell you. So it's a lot more detailed.
You're right.
A lot more than I expected.
If you say to somebody, you walk in the front door of the hotel, people have 100 different ideas of what the hotel looks like.
Right.
So you have to describe it out.
Yeah. Every detail. I mean, you don't want to go overboard, but you want to give
Wow.
enough of an impression of what the room looks like so that the reader can find themselves there,
So what's the future for Dan Ramm? Like, what would you like to do? What's the ultimate thing? Create a TV series?
I'd love to make a show out of this. I think, my dream would be to have Timothy Oliphant play Mason Powell. I think he's kind of who I had in mind when I wrote it, frankly.
Right. So
I'd love for him to respond and think about himself in that role. But I'd like to keep writing books. I really had a good time, and when you get to the end of Long Branch, you'll know why another book would be a logical thing to have happen.
Oh, he left us in suspense. You have to read the book now.
Yeah.
And figure out why there's going to be another one.
End.
Long Branch, and the next one is going to be Asbury Park. No,
it's going to be Short Branch.
Short Branch, Medium Branch.
They cut the branch.
There's no branch. Who cut the branch?
Damn branch is gone.
It was an old tree.
Yeah, it died.
Still working for Joe?
Still working for Joe. Joe is happier than ever. He's working on Criminal Minds season 18 right now. He just directed an episode. They do 10 a season now. It's on Paramount Plus. Fans are going crazy for it still. So I think it'll keep going for a little while. He produced a couple. He and I produced a documentary on PTSD called No One Heals Alone that is just out now. He produced on his own without me. I don't know what I did wrong. This really beautiful documentary about an Arabian stallion pony that broke its back, and everyone said, you got to put this horse to sleep. That's what you do, And this woman just would not accept it and found a veterinarian who had done this very complicated spinal surgery on large dogs like Great Danes. And she operated on this horse, and he and I went up to Northern California and saw this horse. That horse is fine now.
That's unbelievable.
It's a miraculous
You never hear about that. So they did a documentary on how they saved the horse?
Yeah, it's pretty great.
How does anybody even know the horse has a back problem?
It fell. Apparently, it was something frightened it, and it went up on its hind legs, and then it fell backwards.
Wow.
And they were showing video and pictures of the horse when it was injured, and you could see its spine, instead of being straight like this, it was buckled at one point. And that's why they were like, this horse has got to get put down. Like, you don't, even broken leg, they don't fix that on a horse.
Really?
Yeah. But this horse they were able to save.
What a weird world.
Yeah,
I
right.
had no idea that even took place.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the stuff that you guys all do, of course, on the internet. And I see stuff on, I watch Criminal Minds and stay in touch. We have a lot of mutual friends.
Yeah, we do.
Vinny Ciceri was calling me today. I was hoping maybe he was going to drop by and be part of the show tonight and
Oh, yeah, maybe.
see what he's all about.
He's a very funny stand-up on his own.
And if he's not, boy, you better laugh anyway. He's going to follow you to your car.
That guy, he is a teddy bear, right? You know, he's just a teddy bear. But when he turns that look on his face, it's like, I get scared. And I've known him for decades.
We have done a lot of shows together. He was one of the first guys I met when I started working at the Comedy Store back in the day. And I used to do a routine, Vinny get the bat. And he came up to me and he goes, my name's Vinny. I'm like, am I going to get killed? I mean, it's a joke, I'm joking. But we remained friends ever since.
Yeah. Tammy Pescatelli.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Good friend. Yeah.
Was that right?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's right, because when we were doing the Dina Martin roast and everybody knew everybody. Yeah. I tell you, I have it on video. When Dina did a roast in Vegas, and I think it was the one for Joe, because she did several, and I was lucky enough to be on all of them. They had, Vinny Pastore had one, and another guy who recently passed away, the guy from the French Connection.
I know who you mean. I can't remember his name.
Boy, we're really failing here with these names. Anyway, him, a couple other guys, and then she said, okay, we're going to do Joe Montaigne. I'm like, listen, I know him better than everybody, so...
that was a pretty fun night.
I had so much fun.
You guys were brutal on him. It was awesome.
But when we went out that night, and everybody was sitting at the table at that place called The Bootlegger.
Yeah.
It's dark and dingy and black and red and old school. And Dina was talking about her family. I don't even know if anybody was even listening 100% because maybe everybody knows. But I was glued. And I have been many times because I like to listen. Yeah. But when she said, of all the people, she was friendly with Charles Manson, I'm like, what just happened? Yes. Where did this conversation go? Yeah. And then you put two and two together. Yeah, they were all in the same neighborhood. Yeah. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, all those kind of kids, when Dina was a kid, like, Sinatra's kids, Dean's kids, the Partridge Family cast, like all those kind of people, they were all buddies. The Beach Boys. They
Lucille Ball's family.
Lucille Ball's kids.
And she was talking about all those people. I just sat there like this.
I've had conversations with Dina, and she's told some really fantastic stories. I mean, I can't even imagine living that life of growing up. Dean Martin's your father,
but she actually would mention Uncle Frank. Yeah. Uncle Sammy. Yeah. Uncle Jerry Lewis. She called them all uncle.
Oh, yeah.
And then the comedians, too. I forgot everybody's name. But the opening acts for the families.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
I wonder if she even knows Bob Anderson. I got to make that phone call.
She might. I mean, I feel fortunate, even though I didn't ever meet any Frank, Dean, or Sammy, I got to know Dina very well, and also Frank's widow, Barbara, very well, up until she passed away a few years ago. She was a really sweet woman. And she would tell stories about Frank that were hilarious. She was told me about the San Gennaro feast once in New York, that they were there. And she goes, oh, yeah, we had a friend, I don't know, Jimmy the Limper, whatever his name was. He got pinched at the San Gennaro feast. And I said, excuse me? And she goes, yeah, he got arrested. I said, what did he do? She said, well, he just thought it would be a good idea while everybody was busy at the feast to rob a place. And I said, what did he rob? And she said he went into this store that had a safe. He threw a tablecloth over the safe and then just wheeled it out and was wheeling it down the street. And most people thought it was a table because it had a big checkered tablecloth on it. But, somebody was like, a cop stopped him and said, that's awful dense to be a table. What is that? And he went to jail.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Such
it was
great
even
stories.
More, to hear a woman like Barbara Sinatra tell that story was even more hilarious.
I can't remember 100%, but I do remember Dina was telling me the story about the song, These Boots Were Made for Walking. Yeah. And I could have sworn she said I was supposed to sing it, but I didn't want to, or I was in school, or I was too busy. So I said to my cousin Barbara, you have it. Yeah. Could that be it?
That could be true. In those days, all those all new songs like that floated around to everybody, and people, I mean, Sinatra famously turned down "I Left My Heart in San Francisco," and he said, "Boy, am I smart! I turned that one down."
Yeah.
Dean Martin turned down the Nat King Cole song. What is it with us? Is it the air? Is it the age? What happened, Mike?
It's not my age. What are you talking about?
Wait, you're Mike, right?
I'm 50. Right? What do you do? Oh, man, this is really great. I hope we're going to end up doing some stuff together because I would like to. When you mentioned the city that you went to go see and how it was like being Mona Lisa.
Dean turned down Mona Lisa.
Did he really?
Yeah.
That's all right. Now I got to think about that. Who did do it?
Nat King Cole.
Nat King Cole.
And it was a huge hit for him.
Yeah, right. Then his daughter.
Yeah.
Did the reprise.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what they call it? Reprise when they redo it?
And she combined his voice with her.
With them,
yeah,
yes.
That was beautiful.
Wow. It's funny, when they had the Feast of San Jeronimo in Los Angeles, that's when I was getting to meet so many different celebrities because I was hosting the shows.
Yeah.
And I remember them all rehearsing at Capitol Records, and I just sat there with my video camera at the time. I'm like, I can't believe I'm meeting all these
Just
people.
to be in Capitol Records is Studio A, that's where it all went down.
Yes, that's where they were rehearsing.
That's cool.
I could have sworn I remember them arguing who was going to get to do somebody else's song.
Yeah.
And at that rehearsal for this two particular big events, and I was hosting, Anita Baker, Lou Rawls.
Yeah.
Who's the boss?
Springsteen?
No.
Oh.
No, the other boss.
Kimmel?
No. Who's the boss? He was on a TV series called
Tony Danza.
Tony Danza.
Yeah.
And Davi, Dina.
Davi's a great singer.
He's unbelievable.
He's got a beautiful voice.
I have a lot of fun working with him.
I bet.
He kills.
Yeah, I'm sure.
We did a show once. There were 15,000 people in that audience. He had a 22, maybe 30-piece orchestra, xylophone, everything, you name it.
Yeah.
And we were in the green room, and I remember sitting there going, I'm a little nervous. He goes, no, you're not. And I'm like, you're right, I'm not. Don't fuck me up, Marino.
Just like Ciceri. When Davi gives you the look, you're like, oh, freeze,
It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine. Then later on, he'll go like this, are you hungry? Did you eat? You didn't eat. I'm like, just scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
But we have a lot of fun.
Yeah. That's great.
So it was great to meet other people. I remember they were saying, who gets to sing what song? And they would fight over it.
I'm sure.
They would actually fight over it. Well, what day are you singing it?
Yeah.
Even Tony Orlando, I remember one day he called me back out on stage. He goes, can you help me sing this song? I go, no, I don't sing. I go, why would I help you? He goes, I don't know the words. I go, I thought it was your song. He goes, no, it's an Italian song. I go, am I really? I would call my mother, Mom, you won't believe who I met.
It's too bad the San Gennaro Feast here kind of fell apart like it did because, they had so many great people perform there, so many wonderful.
In the first 10 years, when it was the original 13 members from New York and New Jersey putting together, we were just so passionate about doing it. I was on the board of directors too, and we ended up becoming the Sons of Italy Hollywood Lodge. It just, eventually you can't keep up. Your life changes.
Yeah. And
so what are you going to do?
It's a big commitment too on you guys' part. There's a lot to
Well,
do.
there was some people who actually were there to do it all year round. They got paid. They were on a payroll.
Yeah.
And then they're volunteers. There was some years. It looked like millions of people were walking through this parking lot.
Yeah.
And it was a lot of fun. But then you got to ask yourself a question. If, let's say just for me, for instance, and you're hosting a show and you meet an Anita Baker or anybody, and they say, hey, this is really great. You want to go on the road? What are you going to do?
Yeah, right.
You're going to say, yes,
Yeah,
I'm going to go. So if the following year it was time for the feast and you were on the road, you said, sorry, I got to go earn a living.
Right. I'm on the road with Anita Baker. Leave me alone.
I did her with her for a little while, but then all the other people, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then, of course, then you go on your own.
Yeah.
And you're on your own.
Yeah.
Then you're turning around and calling people, say, hey, you want to open for me? And you want to go on the road.
Lou Rawls did it, I remember, one year. Keely Smith did it one year.
Oh, yeah.
She was wonderful.
Frankie Valli, Frankie Avalon.
Yeah.
I got to meet all of these cats.
Yeah.
And then the celebrities who just did a couple of speeches.
Yeah.
Let's say.
Yeah. Those guys, for me, like singers and athletes, they impress me more than actors, I have to say. And the reason I say that is, and I don't mean to put down actors, because I know a lot of amazing actors, but I also know people that are actors that aren't that great, but somehow they work. You know, they fake it good enough to work. But you can't fake being a running back, right? Or a forward guard for the Lakers. You can't fake getting up on a stage and singing and hitting a high note. You got to either do it or you're out. So I'm a little bit more impressed with.
I'm actually glad that you said
people.
that because, like I said, I never wanted to become a comedian. It happened.
Yeah.
And I had friends tell me, you know, you have a flair for stand-up. Why don't you do some stand-up? And I fought it for a while.
Yeah.
But once I started doing it, I realized I could create my own career. I can go wherever I want. But I do, at this stage of the game, tell people, go see live performers.
Yeah.
Because we don't have a choice.
And
once we start, you're on.
Exactly.
Baby.
In stand-up comics, I put in that same class because either you're funny or you ain't. Right? There ain't no gray line, you know? So you go into a room and you watch somebody stand on a stage for an hour or however long it is and tell stories or jokes. If you don't laugh, that person's not there the next night.
That's true. You're not going to sell any tickets.
Feedback. It's not like a basketball game. Well, we lost this one, but tomorrow we'll... No. Nobody laughed, Mike. You're out.
He didn't sell any tickets, kid.
Yeah.
No, I love live performing. The craziest thing about it is, I mean, it's a drug.
Yeah.
It's a drug. Once it's in your arm, boy, ask any comedian, what's it like? If you do a great show and you get to a level where there's a couple thousand people screaming at what you're doing, boy, you are high to the point where you don't want to come down. And then maybe one of these days I should see a therapist because you get a great accolade like Carnegie Hall. And the first thing I said was, no, I'm supposed to play Madison Square Garden.
Apparently they didn't get the memo.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what there must be somebody new at working the switchboard. I don't know.
I'm hoping in the future that we're all going to do something cool together because this whole Mayberry thing, I come from a town called Scotch Plains, and in Scotch Plains, it's like Mayberry. Nobody locks their doors. They don't lock their cars. There's no racism. There's no fights. If you go to the church, great. If you go to the synagogue, great. Everybody's happy.
Yeah.
Happy. How did they get it right? And when I do my little Instagram feeds, people write to me and say, is it a set? Is it a movie set? Or is that real? I'm like, it's real. Yeah. And they're like, can you visit it? I'm like, it's not a destination. It's a town.
And the answer is no. Yeah. Stay away.
Kind of.
I mean, I vote we all go back to flip phones. I don't know about you. But.
I go back to the rotary phone in a minute. Wow, we've been talking for a long time. Hey, let's get going. We got to get going because we got some shit we got to do tonight. I know you guys don't know about that, but we do. We're going to go see a really great new venue here in Los Angeles, California on Ventura Boulevard. It's called the Write-Off Room. It's brand new. It used to be a place called Oil Can Harry's.
Yeah.
If you remember what it was.
That was very famous for a long time.
Yes, Oil Can Harry's was a gay joint. I don't know if we could say that anymore, but it was. So that's
I think they're fine with it.
Yeah, they should be. It was their place. But anyway, so we're going to get going. I want to thank my guest, Dan Rand, for coming down the basement and hanging out with me this afternoon. He's got a great book, folks. You got to check it out. Have a great read. Have some fun. It's all about this long branch scenario, and there's going to be a short branch and a medium branch. He's going to keep on writing. It's not going to stop. And I think you're going to enjoy it. So, Dan, one more time, just tell everybody where they can get it.
You can get it Amazon. You can get it Barnes & Noble. If you want an electronic version, you can get it at those places too, or Kobo and Apple.
Don't you have a website? Like, where can people go get an autograph from you?
DanRammBooks.com.
DanRammBooks.com.
Yeah.
And there's 2 M's in Ram.
Because one isn't enough.
When you get rammed, you got to get rammed twice. We got to get going.
You know, that's a joke in my family. After I got married, my cousin walked up to my wife and said, "You got rammed."
That's uncomfortable.
It is.
We got to get going. Ladies and gentlemen, let's remember to make America Italian again. You know my motto. You don't know nothing. You don't see nothing. You don't say nothing. Thank you so much for coming down the basement. Big shout out to my producer, Tatiana Blue Shell, for always making sure we have a great guest come down the basement and put together a great, great show. I'm exclusively every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock on my own YouTube channel, Mike Marino Live on YouTube. However, you can watch and listen to me on Spotify and Italian American Radio out of New York City. We got to get going, and I'm going to say it How do I say it and how do I do it? I always end my podcast by saying the same thing with my guest. Don't take no shit from nobody.
Anybody.
Well, he said anybody.
Yeah, same thing.
That's a little different. Let's do it again. I'm not going to edit this. This is still going. He can't take direction, this producer.
That was a long time ago.
Yeah, right? Don't take no shit from nobody. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, Mike.
You got it, buddy. Hey, folks, thanks for watching live from my mother's basement. I hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, hit the word like and leave me a really cool comment. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any of the future episodes, and you can watch some of the funniest videos on the internet. You can also listen to the show on Spotify or your favorite podcast app.